So thank you all for being here. I hope everybody on YouTube is following and so on. If you have any questions or anything, you can always reach out to us at buddhapracticestudy@gmail.com. So we're beginning chapter 20 now, which is the displays at the seat of awakening. So the Buddha has, rather the Bodhisattva has prepared himself and what we've read already, and now he's at the seat of awakening, and now we're going to see what happens here. So we'd like to read this. So Kunga, if you will read the first page, please recite that, and then Alex, if you'll recite the second page, and then I will recite the third page, and then Kunga, you'll recite the fourth page, and then Alex, if you will recite the fourth page down to the end of 20.21. So it's at the beginning of 20.22. And then we're going to go back and have a little bit of a discussion about what we had just recited with this particular chapter. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right, Kunga, when you're ready, please go ahead.
Chapter 20, The Displays at the Seat of Awakening. Monks. As the Bodhisattva sat down at the seat of awakening, the gods of the 6 classes within the desire realm decided to protect the Bodhisattva from obstacles. These gods therefore took positions in the eastern direction. Likewise, the southern, western, and northern directions were taken over by other classes of gods. Monks. When the Bodhisattva sat down at the seat of awakening, he began to emit a light known as inspiring the Bodhisattvas. The light shone in all the 10 directions, illuminating all the boundless and immeasurable Buddha realms, the realms that fill the entire field of phenomena. In the eastern direction, this light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Lalitavistara, who reside in the Vamala world in the thus gone one Vimala Prabhasa's Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of awakening, where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he produced a miraculous manifestation whereby he was able to display all the Buddha realms in all directions to the end of space as a single mandala of blue beryl. At the same time, Lalitavistara made it so that the bodhisattva, who was sitting at the seat of awakening, became visible to all sentient beings living in the 5 types of existences. These sentient beings pointed their fingers at the bodhisattva and asked each other, "Who is this charming being? Who is that beautiful person?" Then the bodhisattva emanated other bodhisattvas in front of everyone. The form of these bodhisattvas then sang this verse: "He is someone free from attachment, anger, stains, and their habitual tendencies. Light shines from his body in 10 directions, outshining all other lights. For many eons, he increased the accumulation of merit, absorption, and wisdom. Shakyamuni, the most illustrious of great sages, now beautifies all places."
Alex?
Sorry, I was muted. In the southern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Ratna Chatra Kuta Samdarshana, who resided in the world Ratna Vyuha, and the thus gone one Ratnakris Buddha realm, surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas. He proceeded to the seat of awakening, where the bodhisattva was sitting. As the way to venerate the bodhisattva, he sheltered the entire area with a single jewel parasol. Indra, Brahma, and the world protectors now said to each other, "How come this jewel parasol appeared? Whose karmic result is this?" At that point, The verse was heard from the jewel parasol. He who donated trillions of jewels, fragrant substances, and parasols to those without an equal who abide their minds full of loving kindness in the state of passing beyond suffering, is the benefactor endowed with the best mark, with the strength like Narayana. This offering is for him, the master of good qualities, who has gone to the Bodhi Tree. In the western direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva. The great being Indrajaling, who resided in Kampa Kavarna, world of the Dasgan one of Pushpavali, Vanaraji, Kusumita Pichna, Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of awakening where the bodhisattva was seated. As a way to generate the bodhisattva, he sheltered the entire area with a single jewel canopy. The gods, in all directions, together with the Nagas, Yakshas, and Gandharvas, said to each other, "Who created this display of light?" At that point, this verse was heard from the jewel canopy. He is a jewel mine, a jewel banner, and a delight to the three worlds. He is the best of gems, renowned as a jewel, who delights in the true Dharma. He has the diligence by which he will never be cut off from the three jewels. This is to venerate the one who is about to attain supreme awakening. In the northern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being Vyuharaja, who resided in Suryavarta world of the Dasgan one, Kandra Surya Jimmi Karaprapha Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of the awakening where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he revealed within the courtyard the complete displays of qualities of all Buddha realms contained in all the worlds in the 10 directions. Seeing this, some bodhisattvas asked each other, who created such displays? At that point, this verse was heard from each of the displays. The enormity of this merit.
I'll continue that, please.
Sorry.
The enormity of his merit and wisdom has purified his body. His disciplined action, austerities, and truthful dharma have purified his speech. His conscientiousness, devotion, love, and compassion have purified his mind. This is to venerate him, the leader of the Shakyas, who has gone to the king of trees. In the southeastern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Gunamati, who resided in the Kunakara world of the thus gone one, Kunaraja Prabhasa, Buddha realm, surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas. He proceeded to the seat of the awakening where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he miraculously emanated within the sacred area a multi-storied palace endowed with all perfect qualities. The members of Gunamati's retinue asked, "Who has created such a display?" The multi-storied palace then resounded with this verse. It is merely a trance of his qualities. It is merely a trace of his qualities that the gods, demigods, yakshas, and mahagaragas will ever possess. With such traits, he was born into the royal family of many qualities. Now this ocean of qualities sits under the branches of the Bodhi tree. Then, in the southwestern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being Ratnasambhava, who resided in the Ratnasambhava world of the thus gone one Ratnayasti Buddha realm, surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas. He proceeded to the seat of awakening, where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he emanated within the sacred area a limitless and boundless number of pavilions made of precious stones. Then from these celestial pavilions this verse was heard. He who has renounced the ocean and the land, along with all precious objects, who abandoned his palace with his fine oval windows and terraces, and also his harnessed carriages, ornate pavilions, exquisite flowers and garlands, parks, well springs, and assembly halls, giving up his feet, hands, head, and eyes, he now sits at the seat of awakening.
Then in the northwestern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Mega Kuda Dagara Jitasavara, who resides in the Megavati world of the thus gone one, Megaraja's Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of awakening, where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he manifested a cloud of gum benjamin and aloes wood above the sacred area, and caused the rain of sandalwood dust to fall. The cloud then resounded with this verse. He, shining with the light of confidence and knowledge, spread the cloud of Dharma all throughout three realms. He, free from attachment, make the sacred Dharma, the nectar that takes beings beyond suffering, fall like rain. He will cut the fettering binds of attachment and negative emotions, along with their habitual tendencies, and blossoming forth with concentration, miracles, powers, and strengths, he will grant to beings a fount of faith. Then, in the northeastern direction, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Hema Jala Merkurta, who resided in the Hema Jala Pratachana world of thus gone, one Ratna Kachatraba Vayudgata Vabhasas, Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of awakening where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he emanated appearances of bodhisattvas, each adorned with the 32 marks, on each of the palaces and pavilions. Each of these manifestations of bodhisattvas held up flower garlands from both the human and divine realms. They all bowed to the bodhisattva, and as they offered the flower garlands, they sang this verse. Who praised the million Buddhas and respectfully developed great faith? Who speaks with a beautiful voice like the melody of Brahma? To him who now has arrived at the seat of awakening, I bow. In the quarter down below, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being, Ratnagarbha, who resided in the Samanda Vilokita world of the thus gone one Samanda Darsin's Buddha realm, surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas. He proceeded to the seat of awakening, where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he displayed lotuses made of gold from the Jambu River within the Beryl mandala. At the center of the lotuses, one could see the upper body of many women, in perfect shape and appearance, and adorned with various jewelry. In their hands, they proffered many types of jewelry, such as necklaces, bracelets, armbands, gold threads, and pearl necklaces. As they offered these, along with flower garlands and silken tassels, they bowed in the direction of the seat of awakening and the bodhisattva and sang this verse.
He always bowed to the Buddhas, the hearers, the solitary Buddhas, and his masters. Disciplined, mindful, joyful, and without pride, to him who is full of qualities, you should bow down. In a quarter above, the light encouraged the Bodhisattva, the great being Gagana Ganja, who resided in Varagana world of the Dasgan one Ganendra Buddha realm. Surrounded and escorted by an infinite number of bodhisattvas, he proceeded to the seat of awakening where the bodhisattva was sitting. As a way to venerate the bodhisattva, he stood in the middle of the sky and brought down a rain of objects never before seen or heard of in any of the Buddha realms in the 10 directions. He rained down many types of flowers, incense, perfumes, flower garlands, ointments, powders, clothes, ornaments, parasols, banners, streamers, banners of victory, jewels, precious stones, gold, silver, pearls, horses, elephants, chariots, infantrymen, carriages, flowering trees, leaves, fruits, boys, girls, gods, nagas, yakshas, Gandharvas, demigods, Garudas, Kinnaras, Maharagas, Indra, Brahma, the world protectors, humans and non-humans. Everyone felt full of joy and happiness, and no one made anyone afraid or caused anyone harm.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, so let's stop there, please. Let's pause there, and then we'll come back after we have a bit of a discussion on this. Hi, Bernie. Welcome. So this display at the Seat of Awakening, does anybody have any comments you want to make describing, what we've seen here?
I have to say it was beyond any of my expectations.
Well, good. Okay. So let me see if I can help. One of the things I did here, I made a bit of a illustration, a graph or whatever, to be able to hone in on the significant elements of what this was about. So here at the center is the Bodhisattva seat of awakening, here at the center. And then here is the eastern direction. I presume you can see this and you can see my cursor bouncing around?
Yes.
So here is the east, here is the south, here is the west, here is the north. And then here is the southeast, the southwest, the northwest, and the northeast. And then here is below, and here is above. So these are the 10 directions. So understanding the way in which I think this is working will help us to understand what is being conveyed here. So let me see here. I need to expand this a little bit. Sorry. There we go. So here's the seat of awakening. So here in the east is the bodhisattva. There were these other bodhisattvas that were sending blessings to the bodhisattva at the seat of awakening. So here, the first one in the east is awakening to the beryl mandala of the Buddha realms. So this beryl mandala is the same as the lapis lazuli. So the awakening to the beryl mandala of the Buddha realm. So these bodhisattvas are like honoring the bodhisattva who is sitting now at the seat of awakening, which is at the base of the enlightenment tree. So this is in the east. So when we look at the mandalas, we always approach the mandalas beginning at the east. We begin with it. So I guess there's a parallel to the sun rising from the east. The energy for the day, if you will, begins from the east and then goes through the sky and so on. So there's a symbology there. So awakening to the barrel mandala. So this barrel mandala represents the healing process or the medicine process of the medicine Buddha. And this is what the result of the enlightenment becomes, the healer of the illnesses that we have that are precipitated from the five poisons and so on, from all the afflictive emotions that we have and so on. So this is awakening to the barrel mandala of the Buddha realms for the awakening, for the bodhisattva who is sitting there. Then comes the jewel parasol of protection strength. This is in the south. So we can imagine that this wisdom, that this strength, that this power that these bodhisattvas had is creating this single jewel parasol that is covering, that is protecting the seat of awakening. This single jewel parasol, this wisdom jewel, this practice jewel, this realization jewel of protective strength is at the seat of awakening. Then in the West is the jewel canopy of diligence for awakening. So this is a much broader thing. We have the jewel parasol, which is relatively small compared to the canopy. The canopy is much more elaborate. And from a figurative point of view, it's kind of like the whole universe or a whole galaxy is the canopy for diligence for awakening. So this is the blessing, this is the realization, this is the preparation of the bodhisattva in order to take the seat of awakening. And these bodhisattvas are representative of that energy, representative of that dedication, devotion that the bodhisattva is making. Then, in the north, is the display of jewel-like qualities of activities. So this is all the work that the bodhisattva has done to get to this point of being at the seat of awakening, and how that will become an illumination for many, many, many beings, and as indicated as the display of jewel-like qualities of the activities that will come as a result of the awakening of the bodhisattva. Then, in the southeast, excuse me, I got to get on my screen, something appears. The southeast is the palace of the retinue of traits of the bodhisattva. So now these traits, this retinue of traits, this palace of traits, is indicative of this seat of awakening that the bodhisattva has cultivated to be able to prepare himself to be ready for this seat of awakening. So all this is all the display of what the seat of awakening is. It's much anticipated. So then in the southwest is the pavilion of the renunciation of form. This pavilion, this protection, this palace was like a mandala, was like a great house, a great mansion, if you will, of the retinue of traits. Now we have a pavilion which is even bigger that holds all of this, of the renunciation of form, that the bodhisattva has had to come to a realization of renunciation of his body and of all these appearances and so on. So this is at the seat of awakening. He's prepared this as a pavilion. Then at the northwest is a cloud blanket of confidence knowledge. So this cloud blanket, this is a cloud that doesn't obscure. It's a cloud that like blankets, that kind of warms and kind of makes comfortable this confidence of knowledge of what it is that the bodhisattva is doing. So these bodhisattvas are bringing this this blanket, this cloud of confidence knowledge for the seat of awakening, for the bodhisattva. And then last here, number 10, is in the northeast, is number 8, is the flower blossom garland of relative and absolute, human and divine. So what this represents is that the bodhisattva, to sit at the seat of awakening, has already understood a level of the relative and the absolute, the human and the divine, an understanding of phenomenal nature and an understanding of absolute nature. He has not become one with it at this point, but he has an understanding of this. This is what he brings to the seat of awakening as this garland, this flower blossom garland that is already, all of these 8 aspects here are all ready to come to fruition on the seat of awakening. Then below is the nurturing by the bodhisattva for all beings. This nurturing, it's like the fecundity. It's like the feeding, the sustenance, that the bodhisattva will become nurturing for all beings who approach this seat of awakening that he is approaching. So this is below, this is like cradling, this is like holding this whole seat in the midst of the bodhisattva. And then at the crown, at the top, above, is the rain of joy, happiness, fearlessness, and harmlessness. This rain that will be of the awakening will become this wonderful rain that will come with these qualities that will benefit all beings, this joy, happiness, fearlessness, and harmlessness. So this is all the potential of what the seat of awakening brings. So I hope this was helpful to some degree to be able to focus on this. There's much more elaboration in each one of these verses toward this, but this is the essence, I think, of what each of those verses is trying to say. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this?
Lance, I do have a question. Like some of the names of these displays that you mentioned here in the diagram are not mentioned in the verses. Was it like translation of their names or something?
No, they're all mentioned in the names. These names came from these verses. So this is the element of having to have these sutras and kind of digging through them for these little jewels, for these understandings of what is in each one of these verses. Just to read them through one time and to miss the opportunity to be able to see what these jewels are, what these qualities, what these aspects of the different of these bodhisattvas from the 10 directions. So so each one is there. If you look at, let me see, the first one.
I mean, maybe this is also in the footnotes, but
No, not the footnotes.
No.
If you look in 20.2, verse 20.2, the very last line of that, it says, in all directions to the end of space as a single mandala made of blue beryl.
Right. That one I got it, yes.
All right, so then the next one would be in the southern direction, would be the Here,
Yeah,
20.6.
Juniper of protection strength.
20.6. Yes.
Mm.
Do you see that? Where was it?
Yes, this 20.5. I see that was a parasol,
Okay, very good.
but but I don't see that it was protection strength. That was
To the
kind of maybe
protection
deduced.
strength.
Yeah, so yeah, it was. It said it was sheltered the entire area, but
Well, the parasol. All right. To me, maybe I inserted that myself. That the parasol represents a protection. Is characteristic of a protection, and that protection is the protection of strength. That through the resolve of the bodhisattva, if we look at it in terms of the eightfold path, that the resolve of the Buddha, or the resolve of the one who is on the path, that leads to the cessation of the afflictions of desire and so on like that. The protection is their strength to be able to continue doing this despite whatever is happening to them, whatever thoughts are coming to them, whatever obstacles that they have the strength to withstand them. So the parasol is representative, characteristic of that protective strength. So that's where I got that phrase. But
all right, makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
And also in 20.6, it says, is the benefactor endowed with the best marks with the strength like Narayana?
There you are. So Narayana represents the strength, is the god of strength.
Mm. All right.
Who is a classic Indian deity. And you can look him up. He's in the glossary at G417. So, what I've done is gone and I've really examined these things and kind of take them apart and try to help put them together, for our mutual benefit, to be able to see how we can really dive into this and really understand, what is being told to us here.
And what about the names of each of the bodhisattvas and their realms? I mean, do they have any significance? I mean, are there any translations
Well,
that we can find?
I looked at most of them. Some of them appear in the glossary. Some of them do not.
Mhm.
But you can, if you want to, I'm sure they're important, but to be that much of a scholar, to dig into them, their Sanskrit names, and be able to, pull them apart, those long names, and say what, characteristics they have because of their names, can be relevant. But I think that's a scholar's approach to it. We're not quite there. I'm not quite there for sure, but I'm more interested in what this energy flow is, what strength they've been, what the blessings are, and so on. That's what I'm trying to convey here.
So, what do you think the message in this part of the chapter?
I think that the Bodhisattva, is characteristic of us. We are the Bodhisattva. This is the human approach to Buddha nature, to sit at the seat of awakening. That is not unique to Siddhartha Gautama. He's showing us how he did it, and we can follow this pathway. Mm-hmm. And here it's being described as what he brought to that seat, what the Bodhisattva, what the other Bodhisattvas all bring to this seat, that to have each of these characteristics with them, each of these preparations with them in order that they may be able to successfully attain awakening. So you can pull it apart and see each of these elements in that way and say, oh yeah, that does make sense. I see where that does this does that. It's a study to look at this. It may not fall on you right away, but if you're willing to take the time, I think you'll find this very, very revealing, very, very interesting. This whole point, this whole chapter, this whole section of the sutra is fascinating in this way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we ourselves have like true like resolve to get to the bottom of the truth, like this commitment, then all these qualities will surround us naturally.
We're bringing these qualities.
We bring, yes,
We're bringing
we
these
have,
qualities. They do not descend on us. We are manifesting these.
mm-hmm. Okay.
These are the displays of the seat of awakening. Or it says displays at the seat of awakening. So in other words, for it to be the seat of awakening, there has to be, or there would be these qualities would be present. If they're missing any of these, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be complete.
Right. So we kind of, if you want to ensure the success of awakening, we would like to work on all these qualities.
Correct.
First, to make sure that they ensure success, and there is any kind of interference that may happen. It will not take us off the path of the resolve.
And this is not necessarily from this one single lifetime. This could be, from lifetimes prior that have now coming to fruition in the case of the Bodhisattva, or in the case of anyone at this level sitting on the seat of awakening. We have awakenings, we have qualities that waiting for the right causes and conditions will all of a sudden come up. We have many, many benefits that maybe we haven't recognized yet. Just to be here right now indicates that, we've come through many, many lifetimes, if you will, of realization that we are bringing with us. And with this kind of book, with this kind of guidance, with these kinds of teachings and support and so on, that's creating the causes for the fruition for this wisdom to be realized, to be recognized, that we have this within ourselves. We all have Buddha nature within ourselves. But we got to make the effort. The point here is that we got to make the effort, the one-pointed mindfulness, to dig into this. If we do a 15-minute meditation, you're not likely to get to this point. But if you're willing to do a year-long meditation, or a week-long meditation, or a week here and a week here and a week here that's building on each other, then you're making a commitment that is creating a one-pointed mindfulness that you can develop and support these blessings, these fruitions, these realizations. That's the way I look at it. Kunga, what do you think about that?
I think your mandala diagram there is very helpful, and I like the image that these are so it's interesting way to look at this, that the the image that's told in the story are all these divine beings kind of bringing these things to the Bodhisattva. But I like this idea that these divine beings are just a different way of talking about traits that the Bodhisattva brought themselves through their own efforts to the seat of awakening. So I really hadn't thought about that before. I really find that interesting and helpful. And I think that, it's, if this story had been written in our contemporary language, from someone schooled in Western psychology, they may have talked about it in a completely different way. But if it was coming from 2,500 years ago, and all psychology was maybe discussed with this more reference of deities and divinities, I can see that translation. It makes a lot of sense to me. That this is really talking about some kind of psychological transformation in the language that was available to talk about that at that time period. And maybe nowadays we wouldn't use the same type of language, but I can appreciate how you've put it in this mandala, and it's made it a lot more understandable to me. Thank you.
How would you define a deity?
Well, I think that in the nature of the text, it seems like there are representations of these different characteristics or traits that have been isolated from human experience and made into, in sort of, in a way to make them more observable, I guess. I think in Western, we might think of a deity as like a god, who in way we would contrast the single God of Christianity with the multi-gods of other religions, where they may have deities associated with different elements of the earth or nature. But I think in this context, the deities have these relationships to different qualities that are needed to attain awakening in the Buddha's worldview. So like there's all these characters, the Nagas and the the Gandharas, and they're all from ancient Indian mythology or ancient Indian worldview. And they have associations with different water elements and fire elements, and they can fly. They have associations with different powers of the animals. But I don't see them as that being the important part of the story for me. For me, the important part of the story is that they could represent these psychological states. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So I think, a very elegant, succinct way of expressing this is that deities in Buddha sense, in our Buddhism, the deities are the personification of energy. If we can look at the Dharmakaya is pure, is non-conceptual, non-dual, non-objectifiable, and so on. But that Dharmakaya then displays itself as the Sambhogakaya and as the Nirmanakaya in a form realm. In form realm, the Dharmakaya is formless. It's just pure energy or space, if you want to use that analogy. But it manifests, it kind of slows down enough that it begins to take form. And these deities are elements of that display that are representing, like you're saying, the different characteristics or so on of what that Dharmakaya is. So it's been said that the Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya are servants to the Dharmakaya. They're there to help ordinary beings to be able to begin to organize their mind, to create kind of like a goal system, to allow them to work from the bottom up, rather than from the top down. So that to me is the elegant way to express a deity, is a personification of energy. And that energy is what comes, that is the force, if you will, of the Dharmakaya. Bernie, would you like to make a comment about this?
Okay. It's not much to say, except we've got the traditional mandala. What we're having here is a mandala, and the different directions represent the different qualities that are traditional in the five Buddha families. But it's been expanded from 5 to 10 with the 10 directions. So it's interesting because I've always thought the Buddha families as a sort of a tantric teaching. And here we have, right in the middle of the Mahayana, some of the ideas that I normally associate with the Tantra, the idea of the Buddha families in each of the 5 directions. Now, the whole thing is to present the entire universe as a mandala filled with enlightened beings. And that idea, of course, in Tantra is presented as what pure perception, seeing the universe as the mandala of enlightened beings. Now, the details of it, you've gone into with a lot of detail, but I think the general proposition is generally that the universe is filled with enlightened beings. The enlightened beings are all aware of each other, so that when a Buddha is about to become enlightened, all the Buddhas in the 10 directions become aware of it. And enlightenment, of course, is worthy of veneration. That's the idea that comes across. If you just want to simplify it just to a few words, that's the idea that comes through this section. And the qualities of enlightenment are inconceivable, which is represented by the infinite number of bodhisattvas that surround each of the Buddhas in the 10 different directions. So it's basically, I think, just expressing those ideas.
Okay, thank you. So any other thoughts? I'll put this in the chat, and I could also send this as an attachment in our WhatsApp group or to you directly, through email or text if you prefer, if you'd like to have this, and if you want to print it or something. I found this very, very, very revealing, very, very interesting, and helped me in my practice. So everything that's here is extracted from this text. Maybe I entered a word, like strength or protection or something like that. But the essence of what it is, most everything comes exactly from these texts. So there's space in there if you wanted to make further notes. If you printed this and you wanted to write in the bodhisattva names and the realms they came from and make it more, elaborate, you're welcome. You should do that. But I'm always looking to simplify things. That's the way I work, is I take things apart and I say, well, what are the very fundamental things that I need to understand about what's being presented? What is this display? Do I need all the flowers, or can I get right down to the empirical message that is being given here? Alex?
Yeah, Lance, and I had an idea that it could be that this verse is also kind of well, these verses is sort of a word of encouragement to those who set on this path. So, like if they have worked on these qualities and they put their mind, dedicate the efforts to this single-minded goal, then there will be a help from these other deities that exist in the universe. They'll come like to meet you halfway, so to speak, and support you in your aspiration, in your like efforts.
I appreciate that. Do you think it's a literal thing that they do that, or is it that it's already there? The energy's there. We're just as individuals are coming to recognize that. It's not that they're descending on us. It's just they're here. We just don't recognize it at this point.
Well, I would say maybe we are activating them into action.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a resonance.
Uh-huh.
When and it often happens to us, I think, when we when we start doing something, when we start moving in some direction, here comes the help of additional information that we need. That all often happens to me, for example, when I start doing something and I know that I'm missing some things, but somehow they appear and makes my life easier.
Well, that's an interesting point. So I think the question would be, is it coming through an intellectual investigation, or is it coming from a spiritual realization that comes from the heart center, or is it coming from the intellect, from the brain?
Well, it's coming from the universe, but the universe is responding to your own vibration. We're creating vibration of certain effort, and then the universal energies are responding to that, and they're like joining in that in that flow of energy that we create.
Okay. Would somebody, Bernie, what would you think about that?
Well, I can just, obviously, all I can give is speculation. My own thoughts, I can't tell you in reality. The idea is that, the universe can be seen in various different ways. If there's anything that can be said about positively about the drug experience, it's just that it reveals to the extent to which what we take to be an objective feature of the world is just the subjective reality that we impose on the world. That the world that we think we see is as much our own, the result of our own limitations as it is the reality of the world. Is that clear? I don't think I said that very clearly. We look at the world and we see it in a certain way, but we don't and we take that as what the world really is. Instead, it's just our own limited perception. And when was that's the famous verse of William Blake, when the doors of perception are cleaned, everything will be seen as it really is, as infinite. That's a paraphrase. Can't remember exactly. But yeah, when we see the world through the universe of enlightenment, through the eyes of enlightenment, the universe is seen as a Buddha realm. And that's, well, I don't know if you can say either way of looking at it is real, but of course, since enlightenment is a better state, I suppose you can say that's the way the world really is when it's seen through the eyes of the way it is when it's seen through the eyes of enlightenment. So yeah, I think it's a product of transcending our limitations. I don't think you could say it's either from the heart or from the intellect. It's just, I mean, I think uh, enlightenment is not so much adding something to our experience, it's really dropping something, it's dropping our preconceptions. And when we say that uh, the universe is a mandala or a Buddha realms, what that really means is that it's exists in a way it's exists in a way that exceeds our conceptual minds, but at the same time is filled with bliss. And I think all these examples of rains of jewels and other precious objects is just an expression of a way of trying to represent the great bliss that comes with enlightenment, because in the eyes of ordinary people, nothing could be blissful than to stumble across a treasury of gems or gold, you know? So it's just a way of expressing the bliss that comes with enlightenment. That's my understanding of it. But the actual experience of it, I think, is something that can't possibly be put into words. So you can't say that the analogies used here are really what gets seen. They're more in the way of metaphors or analogies, or somehow, because it's late at night, for me it's late at night, I've forgotten the difference between a metaphor and an analogy. But so yeah, well, I don't expect when I get enlightenment to see a rain of gold fall on my head, literally, but it's just a way of expressing the tremendous qualities of enlightenment.
Thank you, Kunga. Would you like to comment on that? What do you? I think the question was, does this descend on us, or are we? It's already here, and we're becoming aware of it.
Yeah, I guess if we're going to frame it that way, I would agree with the it what the experience already exists. It's just a matter of becoming aware of it. Just the idea that the only thing that exists is this now present experience. The past is, just a remembrance. The future is just a prediction. So there's not, if it's enlightenment's going to happen, it's only can happen right now. So it's got to already have some. It's just we're just revealing it. I like that idea. That Buddha nature is a hidden element. You're just trying to reveal it, allow it to shine forth. I think what Bernie is talking about with the idea that as a human being, we have physical limitations to how we perceive the world. I mean, it's obvious through our technology how there's much more out there than we can see. We just need to look through a telescope or through a magnifying glass or a microscope, and or with an electronic microscope or some other type of tool, we can see a whole nother universe there. And all those things are doing is really changing the way we perceive the reality, because our own perceptions are somewhat limited. So I think that there is a way to experience reality, a greater reality than the one that we perceive through our senses. And I think that's part of the enlightenment journey, is kind of opening that up. But I don't think that it's going to look different than what it looks like right now. I think it's just going to be a different appreciation of the experience. We keep talking about how you can't really describe the Dharmakaya as something that's beyond words and concepts. So talking about what the enlightenment experience is going to be like, we end up with all these poetic imagery that's in the sutras, which you can't even imagine the way things are described, because everything is endless and boundless and innumerable, and as many as sands, grains of sand in the Ganges. And one thing is revealed and it reveals all things within it. It's all things that you can't even conceptualize. So I think that's part of it. It's an experience that we're trying to have an experience of, but it's not an experience that need to be handed down to us, or that even paradoxically we can work our way up towards. It just has to be an experience that's experienced. I guess we're laying the groundwork for that experience to happen, but you really don't have any control over it happening. And the more you want it to happen, the less likely it is going to happen.
Alec, do you think, in terms of that we are universe, that we are part and parcel of the universe, and universe is part and parcel, it's inseparable. It's only our limitation of consciousness, that separates us. Are we conscious that we are universe? Is there something beyond the form?
Well, I do believe that in absolute sense, there is no real boundary between us and the universe. So like the universe is with us just as we are in the universe. So we all so intimately connected. So like there is no real boundary. At the same time, like we, like in our mind, there is sort of, through our experience, there is sort of a boundary that very virtual boundary, I would say, like it really exists in our mind, that separates who we are and where is the universe. And when we say that like there's some kind of external help that coming from outside, that presumes that there is this boundary through which help comes to us. But in absolute sense, of course, there is no such a thing. So I think we have to, when we think about these things, we kind of have to put it in context on, are we thinking on relative level or absolute level? And yeah.
So is the point here that we're talking about the seat of awakening? Is that seat of awakening, is that the dissolution of the boundary?
That's a good way to put it. So I mean, it could be the beginning of the dissolution of the boundary. Yeah, and once that boundary is being dissolved, then all those things that we need, they are manifested here because we becoming part of that universe, and everything in it comes to us because then now we no longer like dissociate ourselves from the universe. Like I see it in that way.
Thank you.
So we allow it to come by not allowing it to come by relieving ourselves of those boundaries. Maybe we can think of this that way.
So to go back then, to look at this image of this 10 directions,
Mm-hmm.
if we look at those boundaries or the dissolution of those boundaries, if we see that number one, we have the potential for all this, and it becomes a cure, a healing for all the confusion that we've created for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that we do this through strength, and we do it through diligence, and we do it through our quality of activities. and we do it through our traits, and we do it through our renunciation of that which we think is real. And we do it through our confidence in 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 our knowledge. And if we do it and that knowledge is steeped in the human, the relative, and also whatever experience we can pull together, we can recognize of the absolute or of what might be called the divine. And that this whole thing is, we nurture this. This needs to be nurtured. Like a mother is cradling her baby and nursing her baby. That this is what we figuratively as a child need to nurture this within ourselves. And as a result of this, there's this, sense of this joy and understanding, etc., all raining down on us. But we're in the midst of it. It's only a figurative word that it's raining down on us. But we begin to recognize it in that way. So this is where this is helpful, to be able to use those operative words, to be able to put this into a context, to say, well, this is our process. This is how we approach the seat of awakening.
Yes, that's this helps. This helps to put it into good context. I think that makes a lot of sense now.
The one thing that I've always struggled with, or many things I've struggled with, but the thing that I continue to struggle with is the idea of consciousness. What is consciousness? And I talk about, consciousness of the universe, consciousness of this or that, and I feel like, I'm getting more stable in it. And this conversation has given me a light on that, to say the consciousness of the universe, to be able to understand that, and to be able to recognize that that is a finite thing. The consciousness of the universe, because the universe, it may seem infinite to us, but from the perspective of freedom, of the perspective of the awakened one, it's not conceptual. So is there a consciousness of that non-conceptual? And is that what Buddha nature is? Is that what we call Buddha nature, or Christ, or whatever God, or whatever name you want to give to it, which is only a mental fabrication, a convention that we can to some degree agree upon.
Yes, in some esoteric teachers, they call it the mind of God.
Okay.
Or the Godhead, or something like that. So the big plan.
Or the eye of spirit.
Or something, yeah.
Well, when you talk about the ultimate reality being non-conceptual, you have to be a little careful. Because if you not careful, you can wind up in paradox. So generally we talk about emptiness, and and we say that things are empty. And that's the way we understand the nature of reality, because one of the basic teachings of Mahayana Buddhism is that samsara and nirvana are the same thing. So if we're saying that nirvana is non-conceptual, that's...
No, I don't think we do define it that way, but if you want to, we can.
Well, the thing is, we don't draw a distinction in Mahayana Buddhism, between the nature of samsara and the nature of nirvana. It's the same thing seen from two different points of view, right? So you see reality right now through the eyes of ignorance. And when you see reality through the eyes of ignorance, we get involved in all sorts of emotions and all sorts of kleshas. But when we see reality as enlightened, we see things as they really are. We transcend. Well, transcend is the wrong word. We shit. We get beyond our illusions. So to say things are non-conceptual is a little, from the standpoint of enlightenment, it needs to be understood in the correct way. Now, everything is beyond conception in that without the experience, you couldn't explain it. Nobody can explain to you what sweetness is like if you've never tasted something sweet. Nobody could explain colors to a blind person completely adequately. So when we say that enlightenment is non-conceptual, first it means that we haven't had that experience. We have no basis in experience for talking about it. And because we have no basis, just as a blind man has no way of experiencing color, it's beyond our understanding in exactly the same way. So I don't think when we say things are beyond conception, it means anything in this context, it means anything more than we lack the basis in our own experience for understanding it. And therefore, whatever words somebody could possibly tell us about it is not going to be useful for us because that basis and experience is not there. My point of view. It doesn't
Thank you.
necessarily mean I'm right.
No,
but
it's
that's
good.
what
It's
I
a good
think.
conversation. Kunga, you have anything you'd like to mention about this?
No, I thought that was a good point to bring out. Um, I feel like we use the term non-conceptual because once we pin it down into something specific, then we make it to an object, we make it concrete, we just make it something that we can relate to from our experience, that that's not really what it is. So I feel like that's why we use that term non-conceptual. I think that's the same thing Bernie was saying, is it's because when we make it into a real thing, you know, we just use our examples from our relative experience. It's not gonna be that. It's just trying to point to it, but it's not going to be the real thing because the real thing is beyond our discussion because we don't have an experience of it. I've heard a teacher say that that you won't have an experience of it because part of the experience is not seeing a separation between yourself and the experience anymore. So there's no one to have the experience to talk about. It's like a paradox, you know, like, you know, when you've seen beyond relative reality and you've seen the beyond yourself as a separate self, there's no separate self to have the experience of the awakening. It doesn't exist. There's no, because that's one of the things you've gone beyond, that sense of a separate self or sense of a personalized self. That's something else. Thank you.
You know, to add something to that, that was an analogy that Kempo Carter always used to use for the experience of enlightenment. He said it's like a finger touching itself or like a tongue tasting itself. The idea of the separation between subject and object is lost in the experience of enlightenment.
Yeah, this is a very good analogy, I find. Thank you for bringing this up.
Okay, very
It's like what is one taste? The taste of the tongue itself.
okay. Can we move on then and finish this chapter by reciting this? So it's only a few pages. So if Alex, if you'll finish um, this page 20 that starts with 20.22. So just those two verses, and then Bernie, if you'll recite the next page its
Okay.
entirety, please, and then Kunga, if you'll recite the following page after that, that'll complete this. And this has a slightly different perspective of what we were just talking about in terms of the 10 directions. Now it's expressing it in this homage. So if we can go on with that, Alex.
Mhm. This can also be expressed in verse. In brief, the offspring of the victorious ones from the 10 directions arrive to pay homage to the benefactor who has attained awakening. You will hear only an approximate account of the displays of these bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas possessed of strength and beauty. Some offer 1,000,000 necklaces. They arrive in the sky, loud like thunder. Some display flowers and palaces in the expanse of space. They arrive with jeweled diadems adorning their hair.
Some proclaim emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. As they arrive on this ground, they are like, they roar like lions. Some scatter beautiful flowers never seen before. As they arrive, they roar like bulls. Some reveal their bodies in 1,000 colors. As they arrive in space, they cry like peacocks. Some proclaim the garlands of qualities of the sun of the well-gone ones. As they arise in space, they are like the full moon. Some, like the sun, send forth rays of light. As they arrive, they make all the abodes of Mara appear dark. Some who have gathered the accumulation of merit arrive in the seat of awakening, bright as rainbows. Some scatter a lattice of precious stones from the sky, shining like the beautiful new moon. They throw mandarava flowers and garlands of rampaka flowers toward the bodhisattva as he sits at the foot of the king of trees. Some arrive making the earth shake with their 2 feet. The shaking sound amuses the people. Some proffer the central mountain on the palms of their hand as they remain in midair, scattering flowers from baskets. Some bring the 4 oceans on the top of their heads. As they arrive, they scatter and sprinkle perfume on the ground. Some hold up various jewel staff. As they arrive, they point out the bodhisattva is from afar. Some, like Brahma, have peaceful forms. Their peaceful minds rest calmly and their concentration is firm. As they arrive, the pores of their bodies resonate with the beautiful sounds of limitless love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Some arrive like the god Indra. They come surrounded by millions of gods. As the Bodhi tree, at the Bodhi tree, they join their palms and scatter jewels like the one possessed by Indra. Some arrive like the guardians of the 4 directions, surrounded by Gandharvas, Rakshasas, and Kinnaras. Like lightning, they bring down a rain of luminous flowers. and praise the heroic ones with the voices of Gandharvas and Kinnaras.
Some arrive with heavenly trees in bloom, with fruits, flowers, and perfect scents. Among the leaves, the upper bodies of the Buddha's offspring are visible. They bow to the center of the world and scatter flowers. Some arrive proffering ponds with blooming lotuses. They bring blue and white lotuses that have opened. At the center of each of the flowers, there are a being endowed with the 32 marks, who prays the learned bodhisattva in his undefiled mind. Some arrive in bodies as big as the central mountain. Standing in midair, they cast off their bodies. Immediately, they transform into fresh flower garlands and cover the realms of the victorious ones and all the trichilocosm. Some arrive with eyes blazing like the fire at the end of an eon, showing the dissolution and the creation. From their bodies, many dharma gates are heard, causing millions of beings to abandon craving. Some arrive with lips as beautiful as the bimba fruit. Their perfect mouths speak with voices like the Kinnaras. They appear like maidens well adorned with necklaces. The gods who view them cannot get enough. Some arrive with indestructible Vajra-like bodies. They wade through the waters below. Some arrive with their faces like the sun or the full moon. Their rays of light and luster conquer the faults of disturbing emotions. Some arrive adorned with precious stones, holding jewels in their hands. With these gems, they cover billions of realms. In order to benefit, delight, and satisfy many sentient beings, they bring down a rain of scented and perfect jewel flowers. Some arrive with the treasury of the precious great Dharanis. From the pores in their skin, hundreds of thousands of sutras are heard. With their confidence, intelligence, and exalted minds, they cause realization in all proud and haughty beings. Some arrive holding the central mountain like a drum. Beating it, they fill the sky with sweet voices. Their sound goes out to millions of realms everywhere. The teacher is poised to awaken today and subsequently to attain immortality. This concludes the 20th chapter on the display at the seat of awakening.
So the Bodhisattva is ready, is poised and ready. So in the first verse of this group was 20.22, and it said, "You will hear only an approximate account of the displays of these bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas possessed of strength and beauty." So there's so myriad ways of which to express all this. But these are just examples of that. So how does this land on you? Bernie, you got your microphone on. How does this land on you?
Well, of course, it's a different way of going through a less systematic way of going through what we did before. And I mean, it's my reaction to it is, of course, is like the whole text. It's very elaborate and detailed description of the absolutely, well, I guess the word that comes to my mind immediately, fabulous quality of enlightenment by talking about the qualities of all the different bodhisattvas of the Buddhas and bodhisattvas of the 10 directions. And of course, and they're all paying homage to Shakyamuni Buddha, or soon to be Shakyamuni Buddha. And I mean, it's I don't know, it's kind of appealing in a certain way. It's certainly I don't know, it certainly emphasizes the qualities of enlightenment, as I said, and the vast and beautiful possibilities of enlightenment. That's all I can say right now.
Okay. Kunga, how would you answer the question, how does this land on you?
It makes me, just reinforces me that idea that the interconnection of all things, and our perspective that we're separate from the rest of the universe, it's just a delusion. I think about these things like the bodhisattvas that are carrying the four oceans on their heads, like, oh, that's 20.29, and just trying to, another way of saying that would just be the bodhisattvas are just inseparable from the oceans. I mean, I can carry that image of the four oceans in my head right now, right? I can just imagine it, and that's happening in my head. But this idea that, Thich Nhat Hanh talks about that idea about the difference between our perspective and, that we perceive ourselves as having a separate perspective. It's kind of like a wave on the ocean that's come about through gravity and the wind and atmospheric conditions. And that wave, when it's separate from the ocean, it perceives itself as being separate, but really it exists as a part of that ocean all along. It just has this separate existence because of causes and conditions. And so I keep seeing, when I hear all these different amazing, fantastic imagery, I think about how it's an incredible imagery. It's hard to imagine, but I am reading the words and imagining it in a way. And then I think of that, it's just another way of expressing how we're interconnected with everything else, and that we are carrying that ocean, in our head. Without the ocean, we wouldn't exist. They say that human beings developed out of the ocean, right? That's how all life on Earth began, from the ocean. So in a way, we do carry that ocean in our heads. We carry all the universe in our heads, because the whole, the Earth was only created from the universe. So it makes me think about things like that. Thank you.
Alex, how about you? How does this land on you? Your microphone's muted.
Yeah, sorry, I think it was some noise that was unnecessary. Well, to me, it helps create this kind of positive mindset, positive background in which enlightenment can happen. Because without it, we're talking about of emptiness, we talk about of destroying conceptual thought, we talk about dissolving the boundaries, and it kind of gives initial impression that it will be just empty, dark, gray world surrounding us after we get to enlightenment. But this actually, I mean, it's just an impression of ordinary mind, but here we have something that kind of creates sort of like backdrop of what is what is it really when you're coming close to enlightenment. It is it would be including all these miraculous things that seem to be miraculous, but they're just natural. We just don't normally see them. We don't normally perceive them that way. But it shows that our world will become so much richer once we get to enlightenment, as opposed to what it looks like, destroying, disappearing, everything becomes nothing, things like that. So it is very inspiring, I would say, and it is very motivating. So that's what I make of that, and that's what value I see in reading this.
Very good. Thank you. When I get involved with these things, reading these things, engaging in these things, reading, talking, and I get to a level where, I just get speechless. I get thoughtless. I get, I just want to, rest in it, abide in it, and get very simple. But then, that subsides, and then I get back into it, and it's very thrilling. It's exciting and so on. And then I reach that other peak again of that speechlessness, and then it's just that undulation, that's part of being a human being. And I think that's part of what was said here, that this is what, the Bodhisattva brings to the seat of awakening, was this, undulation between an understanding of a human being and the divine or the absolute, and as we are on the seat, approaching the seat, that, we're moving through that, and we're conscious of that, and so on, and becoming more and more conscious of that, and all this is an exposition of the beauty of that. It's like taking that image and putting it into a kaleidoscope, and just turning the kaleidoscope and seeing it all in all this fractured imagery and so on. Sometimes when I get really high, and I'm not talking about drug high, I'm talking about meditative high, I see things that look like patterns, like beehive kind of patterns or something like that, these interconnected mosaics and something like that. And
sometimes they call it fractals.
Like fractals.
Some people, yeah.
Yeah, well, fractals are, it's a digital term, isn't it?
Mathematical. It's mathematical.
It's well, I don't know, but certain phenomena begin to happen. Physical. It translates into another form, into my body form. When I get that elevated, or feel, to use that word. We're just using words to try and connote, feelings and consciousness and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, I get speechless.
I just want to say that in my understanding, emptiness is about empty of a separate self, empty of a permanent self, empty of a self that's not connected to everything else. We use that term emptiness, and I think people think of a void, but really it means, empty of this separateness because you're full of everything else. You're interconnected. You're really an interconnected part of everything that exists. Because of the causes and conditions, you only exist because of everything else in the world existing. So I think that's another way to think about emptiness. And then when you realize that you're empty because of yourself, because you're full of everything else, then you can see how, all this incredible variety of experience being talked about in the sutra, is kind of relates to that. It's sort of, the Buddha's just not there, emptying himself out, so he'll be a void. He's sort of recognizing that delusion that he exists without interconnection with everything else. And part of that recognition is, this enumeration of everything else in the world, coming into being part of the Buddha, kind of celebrating his awakening. It's like a drawing in of they talk about Indra's net, and each gem being a reflection of all the other gems, and each gem reflects, endlessly, so the Buddha's, every moment of this Buddha's life as he's becoming awakening is reflecting every other moment going on in the world kind of exponentially. Thank you.
Yes, and the verse 20.24, it says, some proclaim emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. So these are the three gateways to liberation. If you look it up in the glossary, you look up three gateways to liberation, you'll see emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. And these are words, concepts that are penetrated on the seat of awakening. It says as they arrive on the ground, they roar like lions. Some scatter beautiful flowers like never seen before. As they arrive, they roar like bulls. So those are just flowery, pronouncements or whatever of that level of realization.
What does wishlessness refer to?
Well, what do you think?
I don't know. I haven't come across that before. So I was wondering if it had a particular definition that.
What's the literal translation? What's it mean? It's
You
an
mean just
English
being
word.
without wishes?
Yeah,
Being without a wish?
yeah.
Okay. Well, the explanation I got on these three, the door list, the sign list, and the wish list, is that wish list refers to thoughts of the future, and that one is not thinking of the future, because the realm of the future is the realm of hopes, of wishes, right? And the realm of the present is the signless, because we don't grasp the concepts when we think about the present. And the doorless is referring to the past, and I can't recall the explanation there, but we don't ruminate on the past and with regret or nostalgia. So it's being free of extinction, of being free of what's the word I want to use, of solidification in the three times of the past, present, and future.
Yes, and Bernie has a great memory for these kinds of things, and we made a study, the past number of years. Bernie and I and a couple of the other guys have studied Mahamudra, and the theme of the three gateways of liberation comes up, in almost every one of the teachings that come from these great masters of the past, present, and future, and being able to penetrate that and see that as, it's either an obstacle or it's something that it just relates to now. It just becomes now. It goes away. The element of time goes away.
So, yeah, since the subject of emptiness always came up, I wrote a very short essay on it a while ago. I think for this class, maybe for the Mahamudra class, I can't remember. But I just sent it to the WhatsApp groups. If you want to read what I think about emptiness, I just said it, and I won't try to say it right now because I think I said it better in that essay than I could probably say it if I tried to repeat it right now. So if you're interested in my thoughts on emptiness, it's now on the WhatsApp group.
Very good. I'll read that. Thank you. So I think this is very good. These chapters, 20, 21, 22 are incredible. I want to go slow and help everybody to see it, to understand what the seat of awakening is and what that process is, how it's going to help. I know it's not going to be forgotten. It's planting seeds at the very, very least, but it may also be be a catalyst or a springboard or something like that. This is the power of the sutras, I think. This is why I'm personally so happy doing these sutra teachings and discussions is a better way to talk about it. So thank you for being part of this. Anybody have any other closing comments?
No, that was a very profound discussion, I think, today. Yeah. I learned a lot, not just from the text, but from what our participants today had to um, say, philosophize on their understanding different subjects here we touched on.
Very good. Okay. So, Alex, you are the Umze for this evening. Would you recite the Day Karma dedication prayer on page 35, please?
With pleasure, the Karma prayer. Dakang Korde
You don't have to
Tamchi.
recite, just the English is enough, please.
By the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikunpa Ratnashri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Om. Ah.
Ah,
Hum. Om. Ah. Hum. Om. Ah. Hum. May my
May my
body,
body,
speech,
speech,
and mind
and mind
become inseparable
separable
with
with
the
the
body, speech, and
speech,
mind of all
mind,
the
all
enlightenment
enlightenment,
to the benefit of all
benefit of
sentient
all.
beings. Thank you, my good friend.
All right.
All right. All right. See you next week or sooner. Have
Yes.
a
And
good
enjoy
week.
Thanksgiving,
Yes, enjoy
everybody.
your holiday. Thank you. Bye-bye.